You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 163. And today we're going to uncover how to use your growth mindset to inspire your best actions. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Hey, are you a thought leader, creative entrepreneur, or change maker and want to magnify your impact, boost influence while creating a financial abundance? Stay tuned for today's inspiring episode with your host, Melanie Benson.
Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. Do you have a growth mindset? Growth mindset is one of the most extraordinary mindset pieces of work in the world. And my guest today is going to help us unpack how curiosity really helps us tap into growth opportunities that are right there in front of us and take more aligned action, get inspired, get powered up, and all by getting curious. I love this conversation with my guest today. And as you listen in, I want you to think about where do you make assumptions that limit you and where could you be more curious? Curious about your own abilities, curious about your team's abilities, curious about your clients, curious about your market, especially if it's really shifting. And one of the ways we here at my company are getting curious is I'm out learning some of the cutting edge shifts that are possible when we use Amplify techniques. Now, Amplify techniques it's everything we're about here on the Amplify Your Success podcast. And now I've started an Amplify workshop series that you can attend virtually. And right now they're free. We are actually we're getting curious about charging in the future, but right now they're free. And if you head over to amplifyyoursuccessworkshop.com, you'll get access to this month's current workshop. So we'll be covering things like how to uncover your unique profit amplifier. I've also got scheduled how to tap into your magnetic message and monetize every single interview, every single stage you step on, every single podcast that you guest on. Turn those into client magnets. We got a lot lined up for you, and I'd love to hear what kind of things do you want to learn how to amplify if you're in the Amplify Your Success community. We'll be doing some conversations about what do you want me to dig deep on and show you how to amplify in your business this year. Again, if you want to attend the Amplify Your Success workshops, head over to amplifyyoursuccessworkshop.com. Now, I know you're just as excited as I am to hear from my guest, Debra Kasowski, today. We've got a really fun story I can't wait to share with you. So let's get started. Well, welcome back, inspired entrepreneurs and curious business leaders. I have a guest joining me today to talk about how to use curiosity to inspire bigger, more bolder, and more powerful action. I'm going to introduce you to my friend Debra Kasowski, the charismatic host of the thought-provoking podcast, The Millionaire Woman Show, and author of Let's Be Curious, How to Ask the Right Questions to Get Better Answers to Get What You Want. And Debra is committed to enriching the leadership potential of her countless clients, essentially guiding them to go within to capitalize on their true personal power so they can achieve the measurable success they desire in business and in life. After graduating with distinction, having earned a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, this award-winning, 3-time international best-selling author, speaker, and certified executive coach spent many years as a clinical manager excelling in leadership development before founding her Debra Kasowski International Company, a world-class training and consulting venture focused on helping aspiring business owners and solopreneurs develop the winning success habits to transform human potential into sustainable profits. Don't we all want more of that? So clearly, if you're motivated to move beyond the mediocre, inspired to forge on the forefront with a proven plan of action, there's no doubt you're going to love today's episode. So Debra, thanks so much for joining me. And it's been so much fun taking our social media relationship offline and into reality these last few months.
It's been fantastic. Thank you so much, Melanie, for having me on the show. And I still remember our huge hug that we had. We realized that we got to meet each other in person after, I'm sure we've been following each other for almost a decade.
Yeah, quite a while. And it was really funny. I just happened to be standing in the entry when you walked in. We're both icons of influence at Steve Volcher's New Media Summit, another plug for this fantastic event. And I knew you were coming, but we'd had some nice interaction on social media, but there's nothing like real friendships on social media because it just takes the engagement, the interaction, the curiosity. And I think it takes it to a whole nother level. So I'm really grateful for all of that. And again, a plug for all of you going to events. Make sure you're really connecting with the people that you know from social media because it really moves things to a whole nother level.
Yeah, the conversations usually start with a hug, and it's like you just pick up where your last conversation was. There's no icebreaker required.
Right. No warm-up phase. So I just love the conversations we've been having about mindset, about success habits. And you really get me with this line about transforming human potential into sustainable profits. And I think we get that as an idea, but I want to just go deeper into the mindset of this transformation because I think you and I both agree that mindset is such a pivotal piece of real sustainable success in business. Tell me about how that plays out for you.
Absolutely. So I like to refer to myself as a mindset coach, and people are like, so why would someone hire a mindset coach? And when you think of elite athletes, because I know you're a coach as well, Melanie, and you do phenomenal things with your clients. Elite athletes have a coach working with them on a regular basis, not only physically, but there's also sports psychology coaches that are working with them because we have to push ourselves beyond what we think is possible. And I study Carol Dweck and Dr. Marilee Adams, and they both have very similar concepts of, we have Carol Dweck's work with the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Dr. Marilee Adams talks about how we have a judger mindset versus a learner mindset. And here I come in with throwing in the curiosity and how it really focuses on mindset. In order to have any transformation, we need to be self-aware of how we are, the thoughts that we believe, the feelings that we have from them, and how they're impacting the actions that we take and the outcomes that we're getting. So if we want sustainable profits, we got to look at what's influencing us. Are you listening to the cool podcast, Amplify Success Podcast, right? Are you listening to things that are enriching, inspiring you with ideas that you feel really good about? Like, yeah, I can do that. Or are you getting caught up in maybe some video games that, really, or the news that really puts your mindset in a different place, that this world, things aren't possible? And I find when people watch the news a lot, or some of the TV shows that are out there, all of a sudden we can see things going on in the world where there's mistrust. And we might not think about it consciously, but if you really think about what you're watching, you may even sense when you start having mistrust based on something that has happened in a TV show. And then you're seeing some of that evidenced in reality, and you're like, oh, I should watch those people when I walk by them. I don't know if I want to do business with them. And it really shifts your perspective when that need doesn't need to happen, because we go into that judging phase. So in order to transform, self-awareness is key. And one of my coined phrases is, once you're self-aware, there is no turning back. You must take action, or you must change something that you're doing.
So I've wanted to talk about growth versus fixed mindset for years on the podcast. And I had it on my list to reach out to Carol Dweck this year because I've been so profoundly impacted by her work. I want to just unpack this concept slightly more because I think when we talk about being willing to take action, because really it's about being willing, right? Mm-hmm. You might know you need to do it, but you may not be willing to do it. And I think what she teaches around this growth versus fixed mindset is it's profound in why some people can exceed, continue to grow, they continue to expand, they can continue to get their potential out there in the world in bigger ways. And some people kind of get stuck at a place. Can you unpack this idea of growth versus fixed mindset so our listeners can really understand the profound shift possible here?
One of the biggest things with fixed versus growth mindset, and I notice it when I talk to people, is a person will have a fixed mindset when they tell me that, I didn't think I was going to be successful at carrying through this action or this task, so I didn't even bother. So that would be someone with a fixed mindset, and you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I know some people like that. Whereas a growth mindset will turn around and they'll say, you know what? I'm going to thrive on this. This just gave me an opportunity to challenge myself, to really move forward and shift the way I do things, shift the way I think about things, and challenge myself and put in the effort. They see effort as a challenge, as an opportunity to grow. Whereas that fixed mindset person, they're going to say, you know what? I'm worried about what other people are going to think about me. And if they don't think I'm good at something, they're never going to hire me to work with them. And then they sabotage themselves with that self-talk that because they don't believe they're going to be successful immediately, they don't bother. And we know that in order to be successful, there may be many times we fail. And I like to reframe the word fail, mistakes, wrongs. This is just new information. This is new data for you to make different decisions and think about and reflect on what has just happened. What can I do differently? So instead of beating yourself up and doing that, that self-abuse, to shift yourself to say, okay, what can I learn from this situation and move forward? Another characteristic of the fixed mindset is that when feedback is given, they take it as criticism and they don't want to have feedback from anyone because they're determined that their way is the only way and they're not open to listening to the feedback and ideas that they can get. Whereas a growth mindset, they will be able to listen to constructive criticism or some kind of feedback, and they'll say, you know what, that point's valid. Maybe I'll internalize that. That point, I'm not completely sure, but let me test it. They'll test the assumptions that they might be having, but they know that they don't need to believe every piece of feedback that someone delivers. Because here's the thing that people need to remember. When someone offers you feedback, it's based on their perception of how they see the world and their experiences. So it's important for us not to take everything at face value, but be able to challenge assumptions, maybe ask some more questions and welcome that feedback, because it can only help us see things in a perspective that we've never seen before.
I love it. Girl, we could talk all day long about growth versus fixed mindset.
Absolutely. My favorite.
It is mine too. And, it really ties into your whole body of work of moving beyond, this core human potential. And one of the things I took out of growth versus fixed mindset, and it served me very well as a mentor and coach, is this idea that fixed mindset people, they look at their natural potential and they believe that's all they have the capacity for. And once that natural potential has been used up, they don't have it in them to push beyond their perceived limits. Whereas growth potential people, growth mindset people, they're constantly challenging their limits. And I truly believe if you want to accomplish great success in business, you have to adopt a growth mindset. And you may even have little pockets. This was a big thing for me. I had little pockets where in some places I had growth mindset, but some places I was operating in fixed mindset. And so I really challenged myself to get curious. And what would it take to apply a growth mindset to this area of my life? And it's really served me well. So I'm glad we brought that up. I want to understand how people can use curiosity a little bit more. And I know we could read your book and probably get such a great lesson on it. And I do want to inspire people to get your book because it's going to be such a great read. But let's give people a little bit of a kind of a primer on how they could take curiosity into an area they're stuck in their business or their life right now and really have a breakthrough.
So thank you for asking this question, because I love talking about curiosity. And I just want to tap into what you were just saying as well, that people limit their potential. They limit their potential because what they see is their current circumstance. And what I want people to push beyond is, if there's someone you admire, something that they've achieved, or you think, wow, that would be great, and you kind of look maybe with envy, but maybe that longing that you know that you're made for something more, to say, you know what, here's the thing that I want you to really remember. If someone has achieved something that you want to do, that means it's achievable, number one. Number two is, what you admire in someone else is often mirroring back to you what you can do. Now it's just a matter of you believing that you can take the action steps and get the same results in your own way. So when we talk about curiosity, I really want to encourage people to ask questions. I find that people hold themselves back, and this is where that fixed mindset plays, is that they don't want to ask because they have the fear of looking stupid, that they're not smart enough and not worthy enough, not deserving, and all the not enoughs. But when you come from a place of curiosity, no one can get defensive when you ask the question of coming from a place of being a learner. And I love to use Carol Dweck and Dr. Marilee Adams as an example, because as soon as we ask a question, we don't need to come from a place of judgment. And when we come from a place of judgment, we might run into someone or meet someone at a networking event, and we think they look similar to, an ex of some kind, or someone that you were bullied by in childhood, and you'll be like, they remind me of that person. And all of a sudden, the feelings you felt about the other person show up, and you are not going to go and have a conversation with this person because you've already judged them. They must be just like that person, and they're not. But when you come from a place of curiosity, or you're seeking more information in any situation and asking questions, this is where we are open to learning more without putting that judgment aside, because judgment is what is holding us back. It's that resistance from really taking us to a higher level.
This is really good. I've actually had people come up to me at events or in life situations where they say, you remind me so much of my ex, and I really didn't like you at first. I'm like, thank you, I guess. Like, I don't know. Are we over this now? Can we actually get curious about each other? So it is real. People really do have those judgments that limit them. And I love that you're making a stand for, expanding our potential this way. All right. So let's assume we're curious. We're starting to break free of these places we've been limiting ourselves. We're expanding our potential. Now, I know a lot of people can get to that place, but still not really have the success they want. How do you think strategy plays into this?
I love this. So one of the things that I like to do with my clients is, first of all, do you have the clarity that you need? And one of the exercises I do with individuals is sit with them 10, 15 minutes. And all I do is ask them, what do you want? What do you want? See, where people get defensive is when you hear the words why or how, or they get blocked by how. Why is like, why did you do that? Then they all of a sudden they hear their mother or a teacher or someone asking, well, how come you did that? Why did you do this? And they get defensive. But in order to open up the mind, we want to use words like what? What is possible? In what ways did this show up? So I love how you frame that, is really opening up to where can we go with a question and really thinking about the direction that we want to go.
Yeah, because that's really what strategy is. It's understanding where we want to go, right? And then what is the success habits and the actions we need to take to close that gap, right?
Yeah. So for example, one of the clients that I was working with, she's like, Deb, I really, we did that 10, 15 minutes. So every 2-3 minutes I'd sit there, and I was, sitting there quietly while she was writing away. And all I said was, what do you want? What do you want? After a while, it becomes a little bit of an irritant, kind of poking, right? But as I continue to say the same phrase at the end of that 15 minutes, it was like do not filter, write down everything that comes to your mind of everything that you want. And then after we're done, we get to go and look at everything that was written down. And then asking, what is the priority? What's most important to you right now? She said, I really want to go to Jamaica. I said, okay, great. How much does Jamaica cost? And she said, I have no idea. So here's what I want people to know is, first of all, you need to get clear. What is it that you truly want? But then when you realize that clarity, she already knew that she wanted to go to Jamaica. But the step is, you don't know if you can already afford something if you don't do the work to find out. You need to be asking questions. What do I want to do there? Where do I want to stay? So when we start thinking of our life as a mini reporter, that we're gathering information, then we can start taking steps to go after what it is exactly we want. The reason I wrote Let's Be Curious was because people were coming to me and say, well, what do you think? Do you think John wants this? Or do you think, Krista wants this? And I'm like, well, you're asking the wrong person. First of all, making sure you're asking the right question to the right person and the right timing. And I'm going to share this pet peeve, and you probably have heard it, is people will say, when you work in an organization or you're working with a business team, well, we've done that before. It didn't work. Well, when did you last do it? Do you have the exact same people on the team? Is the technology the same? So all of a sudden, I get a lot of, no, that's not the same. We have different people on the team. We all went through different experiences. So we're never back to that same moment. But the biggest thing is, did we come from a place of curiosity to learn where we went off track? And once we determine where we've gone off track, we can realign. And as your podcast is, we can amplify our actions to get to where we want to go.
That is exquisite. And I'm going to just take that idea and just fuse the thought process into the entrepreneurial and online world, right? So what if you come to your coach and say, well, I've done that before. It didn't work. If we really take what Debra's saying here and we're curious about what would it take to make it work now, right? Because things are different. You're different. You've got a different coach. You've got a different situation. But what we also forget is our environment is different now too. Mm-hmm. The world's always changing. So that's such great advice, Debra. I love it. Love it. It's making me curious now about how habits play into this. And I know this is a big part of your work, so I'm kind of teeing you up here to talk about success habits and how they're playing into bridging this gap between what we want and what we're actually creating as reality in our life.
So one of the things is, when it comes to, mindset and habits and involving curiosity into making those habits stick, is really about, are you putting the systems and structure in place so that you don't even have to think about it? And I love what you said, Melanie. You talked about, asking the questions, what would it take? One of the most beautiful questions ever. What would it take for you to achieve your goal? So let's pick whatever goal it is that you have in mind. And
let's say somebody wants to write a book. Let's actually make this real for our audience, right? Because how many people have been saying, I want to write a book, but they don't?
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because with writing a book, everybody has different systems. I've worked with people who, we put 10 pieces of paper on the table and there's 10 chapters. And you write a title on each page and you break it down that way. But my technique that I've used is I use mind mapping. So I mind map my books out, but I begin with an end in mind, as you would, hear with Stephen Covey, the late Stephen Covey, is when you begin with an end in mind and you reverse engineer your plan, then you think about, okay, this is the ultimate outcome that I want. What are the steps that I know that I need to do in order to get there? So I had ideas of the different themes I wanted to write in my book. So I had put up 8 flip chart papers, Put the theme as a central concept. If any of you are not familiar with mind mapping, I highly recommend this tool for you. And you start with and it's formed by Tony Buzan, as the father of mind mapping. But you start with a central idea, and it's called Radian Thinking. So if you think about our brains, we don't really think linearly. We don't think in lists. We don't think in lines, but we're taught that way. We think like popcorn in a popper. We get ideas and it's like, oh yeah, hang on to that. And that's where, people get the bright, shiny object syndrome, is because of this popcorn ideas. But we can use mind mapping to kind of corral or capture those ideas into separate mind maps or bubble mapping of whatever you might have heard it as, and then branch this off this central concept, and then think about, okay, what is it that I need in this chapter? So if I was talking about emotional intelligence, I'd be talking about all the components of emotional intelligence and making sure that I'm touching on all those areas and why curiosity is a really important part of that. So as you're letting those ideas go out onto paper, they are not trapped in your head. So whatever goal it is, like writing the book, you want to reverse engineer, what is it that I need to get? It's ISBN, title. Am I going to write it myself? Am I going to use a ghostwriter? What do I see in envisioning the cover to look like? But then what is the content that I want people to walk away with? Can I appreciate where I am right now in order to get where I want to be? So it's really developing that inquiry. And one of the things, with recommending when you write your chapters out, for example, think of all the questions that your reader would ask to know. You can Google some to get some ideas on your subject matter, and think about how it interacts with the knowledge they may currently have, especially, and I'm talking specifically nonfiction, because people take what they totally already know and learn, and when they get new concepts, they learn to integrate it into what they already know. So when we ask questions, we get more information and we change our perspectives. As a kid, I played with a kaleidoscope. And when you think about the kaleidoscope and you're turning the edges of the knobs, the picture changes, the beads shift around, so you get a different perspective. The same thing happens when we're writing a book, having conversations, doing research, is that our perspectives change with the more information that we have, because we start integrating it into what we already know. And we may even start questioning what we already know to come up with a new belief, a new thought, therefore starting to get different outcomes. Hence, transformation starts to begin. But as you start writing that book and putting together those chapters and those different themes, you're now starting to see yourself as an author. And you start thinking differently, because suddenly I am an author. I am preparing this book so that my readers, and I'm answering the questions of my readers' minds. What do they want to know?
That is so powerful. I love mind mapping. It's such a great tool. And it sounds like this is one of the ways we can illuminate the habits and the actions we need to take out of a big idea or concept that may feel so big we can't really land. What do I do next?
Yeah, so let me take you back to the habits. Sorry, I kind of digressed a little bit there. But with the habits and making them stick, same thing when you're writing that book, you're creating a structure around. There needs to be systems in place in order for you to set yourself up to be successful. So, for example, if someone was doing weight loss, one of the things that they highly recommend is going into your pantry and getting anything that would be a temptation out of the way. So if I'm wanting to make a habit stick about writing, I'm going to carve out a part of my day to make sure that I'm going to get into the habit of writing and getting things in place. So I create that structure. So if I told you that we have 7 days a week, and I'm going to give you 2 days off. So you get 5 days a week. We have 4 weeks. We got 20 days. We're going to work with 20 days. And if I said, okay, write whenever you feel like. So that would be very random. And you might sit down and write, 2,000 words one day, 1,000 words the next. But if you set up a habit that each day I'm going to write 2,000 words times 20 days, you suddenly have 40,000 words. Maybe I didn't do the math right. But you know what
That's
I mean,
okay.
right? But it's talking about taking daily actions, having consistency versus doing random acts. Often I see people with their to-do lists. They make these lists of all the things they need to do, but they don't block those things into their calendar. So one of your most wonderful structures is that calendar of saying, okay, when someone phones you up and says, hey, I want to go and do something, you can look at your calendar and say, you know what, I need to write during this time. Can we go at a different time? Keeping the commitment to yourself. But what usually happens is people go, oh, look at my to-do list. Yeah, you know what? I looked on the calendars, there's nothing happening on the calendar. And all of a sudden that to-do list is getting longer because no structure has been put in a place to accomplish what I need to get done. So one of the things that I've done for 2020 is my son is, committed to a university team for football. And he doesn't start till September, but training started January 6th. And it goes until June. And every day he has to be at practice at 6 a.m. And as a mom, I want to make sure the kid's out of the house and getting to his things on time, even though he is of age and can do that himself. But what I've used it for, I've leveraged the accountability. So I make sure that he's up. I go down to my basement and I work out with my weights. And on Wednesdays, which I just learned is, his rest day. So I'm still going to get up during that time and I'm going to use that as writing time. So really thinking about how you're going to block that time in your calendar to make those habits stick and eliminating the distractions around you. Put the cell phone in another room, set an alarm. One of the other tools that I use to help make productivity stick is I use an online timer, and it's called the Marinara Timer.com. And you can set up time frames, and it bounces off the Pomodoro timer. Traditionally, Pomodoro is, 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And people are like, well, how much can you get done in 20, 25 minutes? Well, when I have a timer, you'd be amazed how much you can get done in a certain amount of time. So my ideal time frame of work is 45 minutes. So you might have to play with this a bit. So I'll work for 45 minutes and then I'll give myself a 15-minute break where I'll either go for a walk, get something to eat, do something else just to clear my mind and get myself away from my work. And this is really important, especially when you're working with habits, is that you need to give your mind a break from firing all the time to think of something else that might not be your concentrated work. And then I'll come back and I'll work for another 45. And if you do even 4 hours of this in a day, you'll get done more than most people get in an 8-hour day because you're working on concentrated time. And when people put that time block in their calendar, time expands to the time allotted. So if I gave myself 4 hours to work on a project, I'll find many ways to make it stretch to 4 hours. And I probably could have gotten it done maybe an hour and a half. So I really want people to think about when they're functioning with their habits and their mindset is make it easy. Make it easy so that your mind isn't questioning whether or not there's something else to do, that this time is blocked off. It's sacred time, and I'm going to keep that commitment to myself.
Brilliant. I love it. I love systems. I mean, we think sometimes systems are about like big projects and, they're very much about big business, but really every single thing that we create a habit around is a system that we found works for us. And I know this is one of the areas you have a lot of resources. Do you want to share about how someone can get that 3-part video course you have on making habits stick?
Absolutely. You can just pop over to my website at www.debrakasowski.com, and that is DEBRAKASOWSKI.com. And you can it's a 3-part mini video series course. So there's 3 videos, there's assignments with each to help you develop habits that stick. Because we know that what makes someone successful is the habits that they keep, the principles that they abide by. And it's picking habits that are going to work for you that really build those systems of being the most productive, the most efficient, and getting things done.
Love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's habits make or break your success. So if you know your habits can use some fine tuning or maybe even a big upgrade, make sure you get Debra's 3-part video mini course on habits, because this could actually be what makes 2020 and beyond way better than the years before. So Debra, I can't wait for people to get a hold of your book. I will link it up in the show notes on amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com. So if you're struggling to keep track of everything from today, you can hit rewind and listen to it again, or you can head over to the show notes and grab the link for the book, link for the mini course. Debra, I like to end these conversations by taking it back to you. And we didn't spend a lot of time unpacking how you got where you are today, but I'm really sure from our conversations that you've had at least 1 or 2 big, bold moves, risks you had to take, something that challenged you to become who you are today. What's one of the big, bold moves you know really helped you amplify results the fastest?
So there's a number of things that come to mind. And one of the things is really working on my mindset, really focusing in on my thoughts, how I perceive things, and challenging myself. So I've studied a lot of elite athletes, Navy SEALs, Mark Divine, the unbeatable mind. And when you have your mindset in the right place, mindset is everything. People say, oh, I need this skill, I need this skill. And I will tell you that you do have everything that you need to begin from where you're at. You need to start by asking yourself the right questions and really moving forward. My bold moves were pulling myself out of some of the, people would say, mistakes. It could be a mistake, but it was definitely a huge learning experience. That when I first started out in my business, I started with a big goal and worked with a partner, didn't have a partnership agreement, had a verbal agreement that I kept to, but it ended up costing me a lot of money, $20,000. And my big bold move was that, holy man, I allowed many of the things to occur. I gave my decision-making power away because I was busy with other things and I didn't make my input a priority. So it really shifted, and that was part of mindset. The way it was presented, the person knew more than me, and I started to believe that versus trusting myself. And that was probably one of my biggest entrepreneurial lessons, is that you need to trust your intuition and realize that you need to be 100% accountable for the decisions that you make, the habits that you have. And then I thought about, when did I defer other decisions to other people? When did I allow my voice not to be heard? So what I did is I hired a business coach on this shoestring budget, but I worked harder. I hired a business coach. I paid off the debt. It took me 4 years, and I laughed to myself because I could have got a master's degree or bought myself a fancy vehicle, right? But it really taught me, it was my greatest entrepreneurial lesson, my greatest lesson ever. And it really shifted the questions that I ask. It really helped me find my voice and no longer allow myself to think that someone was better. Because if other people can do it, I can do it. But I also started to have a vision of who I wanted to show up as. And I know people should go back to some of your other podcasts. And I was listening about the word for 2020, or having a number of words around you of how you want to show up. And this year, my word is elevation. It's about elevating yourself, and then you're working more from a place of intention with your habits, the way your mind works. So to answer your question, my big bold move is hiring the business coach, knowing that I was made for more and I deserved better. And to really challenge where my mindset was at, to really get me to where I saw myself going. And the other thing that I tapped into, and personally, I have done triathlons this year in August. This past year, I did my first marathon, and crossing that finish line, I really understood how my mindset changed from the place of where I was coming from to accomplish a goal. Whatever the goal is, you change with the goal. It's not, people are like so focused on the destination. And I want to stress to everyone that it is about the journey and who you become in the process, those moment to moment choices that lead you to where you are. And for me, 2020 is all about elevation.
I love that. Thanks for sharing your word. I find that as people have been sharing their words, it's been so illuminating. And for those of you in the Amplify Your Success community, I've been loving reading the thread with what your word of the year is. Just beautiful share. Thank you, Debra. And congratulations on that marathon. I saw the progress of training and then going to the marathon, and it was really exciting to watch you pull that off. It's not one of my goals for this year, but I do understand the power it has over your mindset. And really, you know what you're made of when you push your physical perceived limitations past where you think you can go. Debra, this happened before you and I were connecting as much, but I had a similar thing over the summer when I found myself on a trail in Yosemite that goes straight up. There was like something like 450 straight up stairs, and I did not feel like I could do it, but I did it. And I think those are those moments that we really know what we're made of. So thank you for that great example. Wow, we've covered so much great territory today, and I hope what you are taking away from this conversation, just as much as I am, is how curiosity and mindset shapes your reality. So if you're not in the reality you want, if you're not having the level of revenue that you thought you were, if you're not having the successes that you've been dreaming of, if you're not having the relationship or the team or any of those things that have disappointment and disconnect, here's what Debra's laying out a path for. Get her videos, recognize the power of curiosity, get her book, get the videos, and check out Debra's work. You need a coach this year to shape a new reality, and find the coach that's right for you and really make a commitment, make that bold move to do that. So Debra, thanks so much for joining the conversation today.
No problem. I'm grateful for being your guest, and I love your theme of amplifying success, because the more steps and habits you put in place and how you focus on your mindset, the quicker you will get. You're going to accelerate where you're going.
Well said. This is Melanie Benson, your host. Thanks so much for listening in today. If you want to catch up on any of the show notes and circle back on any of the resources we shared in today's show, head on over to the show page at amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com. And remember, you amplify your results faster when you're in a community of other people who are moving and shaking. Join us at amplifyyoursuccesscommunity.com. One last thing. When you've gained insight from today's episode, help us share that and inspire other people by heading over to iTunes, subscribing, and give it a review. iTunes absolutely loves seeing these reviews pop up, and it actually helps boost my show's visibility. So I would be super grateful for your reviews. And as always, I love seeing your shares of these episodes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Come find me over there. Tag me in your shares. I'll give you some social media love right back. So see you next week for another inspiring episode of Amplify Your Success Podcast.